Before we even begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. What you're about to hear is for educational and entertainment purposes only. These are the exact words, the verbatim courtroom testimony from the federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs, as reported by Inner City Press. Day 7 of the trial started like any other. Reporters whispering, courtroom buzzing, a tension you could cut with a knife. But when the doors opened, that tension turned electric. Cameras couldn't capture what happened next, but the people who were there, they'll never forget it. Because Oprah Winfrey, yes, that Oprah, calmly walked through the side door and took a seat at the witness stand. Nobody had seen her name on the witness list. No leaks, no whispers, not even the press had caught wind of this. It was a complete shock. 1 second, the court was settling in for another day of witness statements. The next, the most iconic woman in television history was standing front and center. Dressed in a grey tailored suit with her glasses low on her nose, Oprah moved with a calm that didn't belong in a courtroom. It belonged on the stage, her stage. But this wasn't a talk show, this wasn't an interview, this was federal court. And Oprah wasn't here to ask the questions, she was here to answer them. The moment she stepped up, everything changed. Reporters scrambled to get their devices ready. Even the court sketch artists flipped to fresh pages. Diddy's own legal team stood up. Not out of courtesy, but confusion. They didn't expect this either. Even Diddy himself looked shaken. Mouth slightly open, he whispered to his lawyer, who just shrugged like, "We're all finding out together." The judge lifted an eyebrow but gave no objection. The bailiff confirmed her clearance. "Ms. Winfrey," the clerk announced, "you may take the stand." Every person in that courtroom leaned forward. You could have heard a pin drop. Oprah raised her right hand, took her oath, and then, and with a voice that once soothed millions but now cut through tension like a blade, she began. "I'm here today because I cannot sit quietly while a man I've known for over 20 years is being painted as something I do not recognize." The room froze. Prosecutors froze. Jurors turned their heads. Oprah had just detonated a bomb, and she had barely even started. "I did not come here under subpoena. I did not come here to rescue a friendship. I came here because what's happening is a case of misinterpretation, a tragic public unraveling, built on half-truths, whispers, and momentum." From that moment on, it was obvious. Oprah wasn't here to sugarcoat or sidestep. She was here to dismantle the foundation of the prosecution, brick by brick. Her tone was calm but decisive. She acknowledged how serious the charges against Diddy were, stating she would never downplay the pain of alleged victims, but then she shifted, and you could feel it. The tone, the temperature, the energy. "I've known Mr. Combs in both public and private life," she said, "and the man I know is not the man being described in these testimonies." Prosecutors visibly bristled. One leaned in, whispered something, but the judge waved it off. Oprah was allowed to continue uninterrupted. She talked about how they first met, a charity event back in 1999. Diddy was younger then, flashier, yes, but according to Oprah, what stood out wasn't his ego, it was his heart. She described late-night calls where he asked for advice about youth mentorship programs, quiet donations to struggling artists, visits to schools in Chicago that never made the news, and then she dropped a line that shook the whole room. "If you believe every word being said about him right now, then you must also believe I've been blind for 20 years, and I assure you, I have not." It wasn't just character defense, it wasn't vague loyalty. Oprah was drawing a line in the sand, and standing on it, she addressed the allegations made by Cassie Ventura head-on. She didn't attack, she didn't discredit. Instead, she acknowledged Cassie's pain and then added, "I've watched Cassie grow up in this industry. I believe she's endured hardship, but I do not believe Sean Combs is guilty of the crimes she's laid at his feet." She made it personal. "I've hosted survivors. I've walked beside them. I know their stories, and I also know when stories don't align with the man I've seen up close." She paused. The courtroom held its breath. "What I'm asking is not that we ignore pain, but that we separate it from presumption." And just when the courtroom thought she was done, Oprah delivered a line that exploded online within minutes, even though no cameras were inside. "We are building a monster in real time, and I'm here to say, be very careful, because once you turn a man into a monster, it becomes nearly impossible to ever see him as human again." After that explosive opening, the room expected Oprah to cool down, maybe stick to broad statements, soften the blow, offer general support, but nope, she didn't flinch. She flipped open a binder and did the one thing nobody saw coming. She went straight for the prosecution's timeline. No stalling, no dodging. Oprah was locked in, the flipping page after page, directly calling out inconsistencies. She wasn't just defending Diddy, She was picking apart the case piece by piece. She started with the infamous 2010 Las Vegas incident, one that's been resurfacing again and again throughout this trial. "I was there," she said. "Not at the club, but at the suite later that night. And I can tell you with certainty, the story being told here is missing key context." She painted the scene. A high-energy celebration, contracts being signed, people drinking. But no signs of force, no signs of anything criminal. Oprah said she spoke to 2 people the next day who remembered that night very differently than what's being claimed on the stand. Then she pivoted straight into Cassie Ventura's accusations. Her tone shifted slightly, more delicate, still confident. "Cassie is brave for speaking, but bravery doesn't mean perfection." She recalled a private phone call they had back in 2015. Cassie was frustrated, stuck in her contract, feeling boxed in by the industry. Oprah said she asked her point blank, "Do you feel abused?" And Cassie's answer, "I feel boxed in, but that's how it is in this industry." That quote, it echoed through the courtroom like a siren. One juror reportedly wrote it down twice. Then Oprah addressed what many were waiting for. The freak-off parties, the wild stories, the so-called underground rituals. "I've heard the rumors, I've seen the headlines, but I've also been to Diddy's charity dinners. I've sat at his black tie galas. Those events looked more like fundraisers than fantasies." She called the tunnel stories, the secret chambers, the alleged hidden victims, pure urban legend. "If candles and closed doors are all it takes to damn a man, then Hollywood is an open-air prison." The courtroom gasped. Reporters were typing like mad. Then she locked eyes with the jury and went for her final point in that segment. Diddy's character. Is he flawed? Yes. Is he complex? Yes. But he's not a trafficker. He's not a predator. He's not the monster the media has decided he is. She paused and added, "He's a target, and that difference matters." By now, everyone in that courtroom was glued to her. Not because she was Oprah, but because she was making points no one else dared. Too, she wasn't tiptoeing. She was standing right in the fire, refusing to blink. And it wasn't over. She leaned in slightly, binder still open, and said something that turned the air cold. "We're not just watching a trial. We're watching a transformation. From man to myth to monster. And once that happens, no truth can reach him." You could feel it. The entire courtroom was on edge. Not because they disagreed, but because she was saying what everyone else was too scared to admit. And then she dropped this. "If this jury condemns him, let it be with facts, not fears, not headlines, not hashtags." At this point, the gallery wasn't just quiet, it was reverent. Oprah Winfrey, the woman everyone thought might stay silent, play it safe, was blowing holes in the prosecution's narrative with pinpoint precision, and she wasn't done yet. With the courtroom locked in, Oprah made her next move, and this time she went straight for the throat of the media. She adjusted her glasses, looked right at the jury, and said, "This trial isn't just about guilt or innocence, it's about who controls the story." You could hear the shift immediately. People sat up straighter, reporters leaned closer. Oprah was about to do what no one else had dared in that courtroom, take on the press, the public, and the power of perception. "I've spent my entire life in front of cameras," she said. "I've been on newsstands, under headlines, and inside sound bites. I know exactly how fast a narrative can become a weapon." Then she dropped a bomb. "This is not justice in motion. This is a spectacle, built by algorithms, fueled by hashtags, and monetized by rage." The prosecution shifted in their seats, visibly uncomfortable, because whether they liked it or not, Oprah wasn't just defending Diddy anymore. She was indicting the culture that tried him before the trial even began. She held up a folder, printed tweets, blog headlines, viral captions, "Diddy the predator, music mogul or monster, cancel Combs." Then she asked the jury, "Is this reporting or is it sentencing?" Her voice never rose, but the words hit like thunder. Pointed out how the same outlets now tearing Diddy down were the ones who once celebrated him. She called it cultural convenience. "We crown someone in the 2000s and we burn them at the stake in the 2020s. 2 jurors nodded. One person in the gallery reportedly wiped a tear. Then Oprah said something that had the whole courtroom buzzing. "I've seen my own words twisted. I've had stories spun until they're unrecognizable. But I had the resources to fight back. What happens when someone doesn't?" She turned directly to the jury. "What happens when someone, like Sean, is already drowning in scandal and has no way to redirect the narrative?" She didn't let them look away, didn't let them retreat into their notepads. She forced the room to sit in it. "At that point," she said, "the story becomes the truth, not because it's right, but because it's loud." That's when a defense attorney smiled for the first time since the trial started. But Oprah wasn't finished. She held up one more page, a printed screenshot from a celebrity blog. The headline? Diddy runs secret bunker of victims under his home. She read it aloud, then stared at the room. This got 1.4 million clicks. It was based on a Reddit thread. No verification, no sources. And now we're supposed to pretend like that didn't affect this courtroom. Silence. Not even a whisper. She wasn't just talking about media bias. She was laying out exactly how public perception poisons the well. How, she asked, can a man receive a fair trial when he's already been executed on every screen? In America, nobody had an answer. And then she turned even more personal. She brought up a dinner she had with Cassie Ventura, one-on-one in 2015. No cameras, no assistants, no managers. Just two women talking. She was frustrated, exhausted, not afraid and exhausted. She said Cassie spoke about her contract, about feeling like a product, not a person. And when Oprah asked her directly if she felt unsafe with Diddy, she looked me in the eye and said, "No, I just feel forgotten." You could feel the ripple. The gallery leaned in. Even the judge shifted in his seat. The prosecution objected in hearsay, but the judge let it stand, ruling it gave context to Cassie's past state of mind, and Oprah didn't stop there. She brought up another call from 2019. Cassie, crying, overwhelmed by media pressure during her public split with Diddy. She said, "I just want people to remember I'm more than his girlfriend." That wasn't fear, that was identity. Oprah paused, let the silence settle, then added, "I'm not saying memories don't evolve, but what I saw back then wasn't a woman in danger. It was a woman trying to reclaim her story." She ended that section with a final line that echoed for minutes. Cassie Ventura deserves to be heard, but so does context. And we can't have justice if we only accept the version of events that fits the story we've already decided to believe. The courtroom sat in silence, and Oprah, she didn't even blink. If the courtroom hadn't already been stunned, Oprah's next move made sure they were. She turned to the one thing everyone had been whispering about for weeks, the tunnels. The wild claims that under Diddy's mansions were hidden chambers, secret hallways, and God knows what else. She didn't flinch. She looked dead ahead and said, "I've been to his homes not once but multiple times. Over 2 decades, I've seen the basements, the wine cellars, the security rooms. You know what I haven't seen? A single tunnel, a single cage, a single dungeon." And she wasn't laughing. She wasn't scoffing. She was dead serious. She described a charity planning meeting in 2008, held at one of Diddy's New York properties. She said she was there for over 8 hours. "We moved freely from room to room. No phones were taken. No NDAs were signed. It wasn't a cult. It wasn't creepy. It was a home," the gallery murmured. The jury leaned forward, and then she dropped the hammer. These tunnel rumors, they started exactly where all viral madness starts, online. She said she personally traced one of the earliest claims back to a Reddit post from a self-proclaimed intern, an account with no name, no proof, nothing. Within days, it had 1 million views, and now it's courtroom gospel? She started naming all the other conspiracy theories that have followed black entertainers for decades. Cloning labs, devil worship, secret bunkers. We've made ourselves so full on internet fiction that now we don't know what truth tastes like. And then she got serious. There may be real survivors out there, real victims of real abuse, but every time we waste time on fairy tales, we dull the blade of truth. She wasn't just defending Diddy anymore. She was defending the entire concept of credible accusations. We make the courtroom a stage when it's supposed to be sacred ground. The judge let her go on. No interruptions, no objections. Oprah was within her rights and making her words count. She ended that section with a line that sliced clean through the noise. "I do not believe Sean Combs is a saint. I do not believe he's above questioning, but I do not believe he's a monster hiding people under floorboards. And shame on anyone selling that fantasy for profit." But she wasn't done yet, because next she turned to Monique. The day before, Monique, using her legal name, Monique Jackson, had testified. She'd called out Diddy, called out Tyler Perry, and yes, and even Oprah herself. So when Oprah addressed the court, she chose her words carefully. "I watched Ms. Jackson's testimony," she began, "and I believe she told her truth. But truth is not monolithic." The room was tense again. This wasn't going to be a fight. It was going to be a dissection. She acknowledged the history, the accusations of blackballing, the hurt, the distance. She didn't deny any of it. Yes, there were tensions. Yes, there were misunderstandings. But this trial, this isn't about Hollywood drama. This is about criminal allegations. Then came a quote that stopped the room. "Pain is real, but pain can also distort." She pushed back hard on Monique's implication that Oprah's past silence protected abusers. I have never protected abuse, I have never shielded criminals, and I find it dangerous to say disagreement equals complicity. She even brought up the 2010 interview Monique had slammed, the one where Oprah aired comments from Monique's estranged brother, a man who had admitted to abusing her. Oprah didn't dodge it. That was a decision I regret, not because it was wrong, but because it caused her pain. I called her, I apologized, but that moment, that's not what this trial is about. The courtroom tilted, the energy shifted again. The defense leaned forward, and just when it seemed like Oprah was finished, she pulled out receipts, literal documents. Ms. Jackson claims key conversations happened in 2008. I have emails, transcripts. They happened in 2012, and under very different circumstances. The prosecution objected, called it character assassination, but the judge waved them off. Monique's testimony had directly implicated Oprah, and this was a rebuttal. Then Oprah landed the dagger. This trial feels like retribution, dressed up as justice. The room froze, dead silence. And when we use trauma to settle old scores, we don't protect survivors. We exploit them. She let the weight of that sit, didn't rush it, didn't fill the silence, because she didn't need to. By this point, the entire courtroom felt different. Not calmer, just heavier. The energy had shifted into something no one expected, a moment of total silence, charged with tension, reflection, and disbelief. And Oprah, she wasn't easing up. Now, she was getting personal. This wasn't testimony anymore. This was confession, confrontation, and a full-on indictment of the system itself. She looked around the courtroom, then down at the jury. "I've known Sean Combs since before some of you were even old enough to vote," she said, her voice quieter now. "I've seen him at his worst. I've seen him try to be better. But what I see happening now, this isn't justice. This is a witch hunt." The room shifted. Some jurors looked down, others straight ahead. "We're living in a time," she said, "where accusations are the verdict. Where a man's entire life, his career, his legacy, can be reduced to headlines, anonymous posts, and trending hashtags." She turned straight to the jury, her voice stronger now. "Ask yourself, when did you first believe he was guilty? Was it after you heard the evidence, or was it before, when you saw the memes, the headlines, the clips with no context?" Her voice trembled just slightly. And for the first time, Oprah Winfrey looked like she wasn't just advocating for a friend. She was begging for reason. "I know what it means to have your motives twisted," she continued, "to be called blind or complicit just because you won't join the mob." Then she told the jury about a private call in 2021. Diddy had just cancelled a major public appearance after a tabloid dropped a wild, unverified claim. "He called me," she said softly. "He didn't sound angry, he sounded broken. He told me, 'I've made mistakes, but I'm not a monster.'" Oprah looked down, then straight back up, and I believed him, because I've seen him when... So the cameras aren't rolling. Then came the line that shattered the room. "If you want to prosecute Sean Combs for being arrogant, excessive, or flawed, fine. But that's not what's happening here. What's happening here is the destruction of a legacy." By now, even the judge was still, leaning back in his chair, eyes narrowed as if rethinking everything. Oprah tapped the witness stand softly. "This isn't about just one man. It's about how we treat black men in power, how we assume guilt before we examine fact, how we erase 30 years of contribution over 30 minutes of rumor. And then the final punch. Do we want justice or do we want a sacrifice? Because that's what it felt like now. Like Diddy had already been chosen, not as a defendant, but as a scapegoat. It seems this courtroom already made up its mind, and it has nothing to do with evidence. Then, silence. No scribbling, no whispering, just silence. And Oprah looked around the room, from the jury to the gallery, to the press. You can cancel a man, you can cancel a career, but you cannot cancel the truth. And the truth is, Diddy deserves a fair trial, not a public stoning. She reached into her blazer, pulled out a folded slip of paper, handwritten. No legal script, just her words. She read, "This system doesn't just judge people, it devours them. It magnifies their mistakes, forgets their humanity, and turns complexity into condemnation." She paused. "Let it breathe. I'm not here to rewrite the rules. I'm here to remind you they exist." And that was it. No grand finale, no applause, no mic drop, just stillness. The judge thanked her. Diddy stood, nodded once. Nothing more. He didn't cry, didn't smile. He just stood there, silent. And Oprah, she turned, walked out the same way she entered, composed, calm, and absolutely unshakable. But what she left behind wasn't calm. It was a courtroom rattled to its core, because in a trial filled with fear, scandal, and silence, Oprah Winfrey had just said everything.